The autopsy of a dead church.
Come on, we can do better than that. Turn to another neighbor and say, neighbor, whatever you need to know, I come to let you know I'm not dead. Come on, let's put our hands together. Standing all over the building, Haggai chapter 1 verse 9 reads as follows. You expected much, but see, it turned out to be little. What you brought home, I blew away. Why? Declares the Lord Almighty. Because of my house, which remains in ruin, while each of you is busy with your own house. I'm going to read that one more time. Haggai 1, verse 9. You expected much, but see, it turned out to be little. What you brought home, I blew away. Why? Declares the Lord Almighty. Because of my house, which remains a ruin, while each of you is busy with your own house. I want to speak from this particular topic in mind as we start this new series, the autopsy of a dead church, part 1, entitled, I Will Not Go Out Like This. You can be seated in the presence of our God. Come on, turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, I will not go out like this. Family, we are starting a new series on today entitled The Autopsy of a Deceased, or you can say dead, church. Autopsies are performed on humans to find out why they died. And the discoveries might give survivor family members information they need to avoid the same path as their loved ones. A forensic pathologist performs an autopsy to discover how a murder was committed or how an accident happened. The information is always useful, but sometimes if you don't use the information that people learn from dead people, you will end up being dead from the same thing you could have avoided. Family, the trauma of observing an autopsy is only beneficial if it is received as a warning to the living. Let me say this again. The trauma of observing an autopsy is only beneficial if it is received as a warning to the living. And one of my favorite things that I often say in phrases that I say is I don't have to make the same mistakes as somebody else when I can learn from the mistakes they made for me. Did you hear what I said? I often say this, experience is not the best teacher. Other people's experiences is the best teacher. Why do I have to experience the same thing that somebody else experienced that I already know so I don't have to die like them? I don't have to go through the same turmoil as them. I don't have to have the same marriage as them. I don't have to have the same, oh Lord have mercy, I don't have to have the same challenges as them in certain areas of our life. And this is what I've learned about church. Oftentimes, people want to know your testimony, not so they can learn from it, but so they can gossip about it. And I'm looking for some people under the sound of my voice that can say, I don't want to hear what God has brought you through. I do not want to hear what God is carrying you through just to gossip. In fact, I don't want to gossip at all. My hope is that your testimony, your test will help me pass perhaps the test that God is going to carry me through. See, some of us continue to make the same mistakes after preaching certain sermons or hearing certain sermons because we heard it, but we didn't take it in. And some things will save you money, heartbreak, pain, tears, if you will be willing not to just be listeners, but also learners. And family, this is one of the things that I see. I'll never forget this. As I was going to the barber shop, one of the barbers, God bless his soul, had a heart attack. And he had a heart attack, and when he had the heart attack, he hit his head, and as a result, lost his life. And his family shared with the barbershop that he was not properly eating on the diet that the doctor gave. And as a result of him trying to eat how he desired instead of trying to eat to live, he faced a fatal consequence which took his life. And then a couple days after that, you hear people in the barbershop, Doc, I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to start going to the gym. Only to find out 2 weeks later, they start back eating like the very person that lost their life. See, there is a time in your life that you stop going through phases to want to get better. You start making it a part of your regular behavior to say that I want to change, not temporarily, but I want to change permanently. When you come to church on Sunday, some people walk in because they want to change temporarily, only to find out that you do not reap the benefits that God talk about if you only want a temporary change instead of a permanent change. And hear me, family. The trauma of observing an autopsy is only beneficial if it is received as a warning to the living. And myself and many others, and even Lady V, when I come across many different pastors that have been doing this longer than me, and churches that may be looking successful, and those that may be thriving, and then other churches that may be dead, I always ask this question, it never fails. What would you do different if you could go back? No matter how great the church is going, no matter how great of a ministry they have, I ask that because I want to learn from people's losses. See, some of y'all can't learn from people's losses because we steady living in the witness protection program. So you think everybody around you have always won, where you don't realize the only thing they post is their wins. But if they was to post their losses, you may think that all they are losers, but you don't realize that we serve a God that you can take loss after loss after loss, and one win will change your whole year. I wonder, do I have somebody under the sound of my voice that can testify in 2023, baby, I done took some losses. I didn't know if I was going to come back or not, but I serve a God that one win can change my whole year. And family, this series was inspired by a book entitled The Autopsy of a Deceased Church. It's authored by Thomas Rain, and Thomas Rain, who is a consultant, goes around to many different churches over the years, and the churches that he goes to were diverse in their denominational or non-denominational background. They are diverse in their locations. They are diverse in their local and regional demographics. However, all had these 10 things in common that caused them to die. I'm going to say this again, that he goes around to different churches, and in this book, he summarizes 10 things that churches had in common that are no longer thriving. The book family, is not about dwelling on the past, but bearing fruit in the future. And as he goes around to different churches, he allows the pastor to share and he allows the congregation to share. And when he goes in, he does an examination of the church. And what I want to share with you these next couple weeks is the autopsy of a deceased church. And I do not want you to just be listeners. I want you to be a learner, because if we make the same mistakes, all we did would be good hearers, but did not become good learners. And hear me, as many as 100,000 churches in America are showing signs of decline towards death. And these next few weeks, family, I will summarize with you the findings of the autopsy from churches that were once thriving but became dead. And hear what I'm talking about. You know what it means to be thriving in one area of your life, and then the next season, something seems like it died. You know what it feels like in one season to be smiling in the area, and in the next season feel like you on a respiratory machine. You know what it feels like in one season to say, Lord, I'm thriving in this area. I'm doing so great in this area. And then in the next season, you're getting ready to be deceased. And here, family, I think if you're not careful, some people will settle for being the walking dead. Some people will settle for being the walking dead because they figure it cannot get better than this. And may God give us the courage, family, to learn from others' mistakes by not becoming a dead church. Say this again. May God give us the courage to learn from others' mistakes by not becoming a dead church. What am I saying? It's not good. A thriving church doesn't just happen. You do not automatically get healthy by just sitting on the couch. You can pray that you get in better condition, but if you don't get your behind off that couch, change your diet, and get in the gym, all you will be doing is living off desire, but desire don't produce results. Desire plus doing and determination produce results. And I tell people often that if you don't want to die and you don't want areas in your life to be deceased, we have to be able to learn from things that's no longer alive. Family, I want to start off with Matthew chapter 16 and 8. And I know the Bible says, "Now I say to you that you are Peter," which means rock. "And upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it." Hold on. Pastor, how in the world are you telling me that there are churches that have died? But in Matthew 16 and 18, Jesus tells Peter, "Now I say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it." Indeed, family, the universal church will never die, but churches have and are dying. When you are a believer of Christ, you are part of the universal church. However, there are local churches where people join that ends up dying. The word church is translated of the Greek word ekklesia, which is defined as an assembly or called out ones. The root meaning of church, here it is not that of a building, but of people. Because you can dress up the building, but if the people are unhealthy, you have a pretty building, but unhealthy church. And this is where you got to get in your mindset that it doesn't matter how big the building is. I don't care how much chandeliers you have in there. I don't care how many people running around there. If personally you're not getting well, you got a sick church. This is what I've learned. You can have a great job and people still be spiritually sick. That's why degrees don't scare me. People would tell me they went to grad school, but still don't know the Bible themselves. Yeah, people could tell me how much money they make, but still poor spiritually. Yeah. They may have a relationship on the outside that looks like they're smiling, but deep down on the inside, they still are spiritually poor. I'm trying to tell you, it goes further than just a look. You got to do some inward insight and working. Everybody hear me. If you are a believer of Jesus Christ, no matter how old you are part of the church. If you giving your life to Christ, if you committed to him, I don't care if you are a teen down to the oldest one, you are a part of the church. I want you to point to yourself if you're a believer and say, I am the church. I am the church. And when you allow your personal life to die, the church becomes a cemetery. Family, when I was doing the study regarding an autopsy, an autopsy is performed in two different phases, as an external examination and an internal examination. In the external examination, the pathologist McDonald notes that the external examination identify characteristics and any obvious signs of natural disease. The body will be assessed for post-mortem changes and other factors, including discoloration, bloating, skin slippage, or insect activity will be noted. The external examination is documented with the photography and the forensic pathologist notes. In other words, before he digs into the inside of the body, he first takes an examination on the outside of the body to see if there's some obvious trauma to the body that showed up on the outside. Because you do know that while you can fake it on the inside, sooner or later your unhealthiness show up on the outside. So what happens is, because you got it together on Sunday for 90 minutes, nobody knows that you go home Monday through Saturday thinking about how you not go kill yourself, how you not go give up, how in the world are you not go walk out of your job and cuss them out and then pray to God for a new one. How in the world do I fake it? And so he says we got to do some examination on the outside before we cut on the inside, because often what's on the inside shows up on the outside. He says then the internal examination is the next phase, what involves examining the internal organs. The process begins with a Y-shaped incision in which the chest cavity is open. Now he gets ready to examine the organs and the heart, because he sees the obvious trauma for the outside. Now they want to see what goes on the inside to really find out what was all the causes to the death of something. Family, today I want to share with you one of the reasons, or the first result, the autopsy revealed that led to many churches' deaths. Can I share it with you? The first result, the autopsy revealed that led to many churches' death was slow erosion. It was slow erosion. That word, family, to erode means to diminish or destroy slowly. This slow erosion is the worst type of decline for churches, because the member has no sense of urgency of change. They see it so often, week by week, that they don't realize that a shifting is happening. So because they used to seeing the same thing week after week, they don't realize that while the church is still standing, the devil then stole something from the church. It's similar to, have you ever seen a house on a hill? And I remember this at times when I would pass by certain areas and a house would be on a hill, and the next thing I saw was the news saying that this house is no longer on a steady foundation. And what was once looks like it was a steady foundation, now the rocks have began to slip down. And as a result of that, it's barely standing. And can I tell you, it's not just the church. Remember, when I talk about the slow erosion of the church, I'm not talking about a building. It's about each one of us that come together that helps determine if your church is healthy or unhealthy. So what does this mean? That the enemy has a habit of using your personal life during the week to slowly erode what I deposited. Did you hear what I said? That the enemy has a behavior to slowly erode what I've deposited. So what happens is you get this on Sunday, but because you have not watered it and given it some sunlight, by Saturday you almost have died. It diminished slowly. It diminished slowly. Remember, the Bible says that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And y'all shouting because y'all didn't get killed. But the assignment wasn't to kill you. It was to steal something. So you surviving that you're alive, but you don't realize stole your peace, stole your devotion, stole your prayer life, stole your giving life, stole your commitment to him, and you sitting here shouting, I'm still alive. That wasn't the assignment. The assignment was to slowly erode the peace that surpasses all understanding. This is why you got to be careful on just shouting over religious rhetoric. Because some people are just continuing shouting that you still got a job and he's okay with you having a job, but he stole your peace. Slow erosion. I mean, have you ever seen somebody that you've known for a long time, and maybe you don't see them every day, and you see them just maybe just on a whim, and you say something didn't change about them? See, if you see them every day, you get so used to seeing them, but you don't see the change until your eyes gets off of them for a moment. Then you start seeing the external change and say, are you okay? You don't look like yourself. You're not keeping up your hair. You're not putting on no makeup no more. You ain't getting a haircut. You just have let yourself go, because oftentimes there's something going on the inside that has allowed you to stop caring about the outside. Hear me. And this is why no matter how great of a church you may be a part of, you gotta be willing to step out and have a different perspective and set of eyes. Hear me. Slow erosion doesn't just happen because of the pastor. Because the pastor is not the church. He's part of the church, but it happens in the members who are slowly eroding because they don't realize. Watch this. It's not always the enemy that's doing it. It's sometimes us. Family, this when there's no urgency of change, things starts to decline. This is why my prayer for me, Lord, allow me to listen to the wisdom that people give me, to the point that I don't have to be on my deathbed for change to happen. Some people won't change until they nearly dead. But I tell God, your boy don't have to be on his deathbed. Just put me around somebody that you want me to get the information from so I can skip the deathbed and live a life that you always desired for me. Hear what I'm telling you. Why do things got to be taken from you and nearly be dead for you to have a sense of urgency? Why do you got to go broke to realize that money should be something you steward? Why do you got to go to jail to appreciate your freedom? It's hard, family. It's hard, watch this, to see the deterioration of things when you're looking at things day by day. You don't see the accumulation of dust in hours. It's rare for long-term church members to see erosion in his or her church. They see the church on a regular basis. They don't see the gradual decline that is taking place before their eyes because all they care about is coming in about getting me, myself, and I, and then going out and leaving no deposit for other people. Okay. Let me see if I... oh Lord. There are times, let me put it like this. All of us gotta die. All of us gotta die, right? But why do people want to repent and have a sense of urgency to do for people that they wasn't willing to do for them when they was living? Now you want to jump in the coffin. Now you want to be reminiscing how great they was. But when they was alive, you didn't have time for them. When they was alive, you wouldn't go to church or pray for them. When they was alive, you didn't have time to go by and say, we appreciate you. Why do I got to die for you to want to appreciate me? Why do your church have to die for you to say, I appreciated the church? Why do your church have to die for you to say, I missed the communion? Why do your church have to die for you to say, I missed the fellowship? Why do your church have to die for you to start missing stuff? And this is the problem. Many of us go miss season moments that God has designed in our life because you waiting for things to die for them, for you to appreciate them. And this is not the first time we see this. When you go back in time to 520 BC, where a still relevant story is told in the Old Testament book of Haggai, the Bible allows us to see in the context as a remnant of Jews that had returned to Jerusalem after a long exile. They returned to a devastated town, but they began to rebuild. Their first order of business was to build the temple, the house of God. And hear me, family, they began by laying the foundation. Here it is. But they stopped working on the temple and began working on their own homes for their own comfort. The Bible lets us know at the time the exiles had been back in Jerusalem for 18 years, but the work of rebuilding the temple laid idle for the last 14 years. God then speaks, and he wants them to know why, and he wants to know why the Jews did not notice the decline in the temple. God wants to know why they stopped building his temple and start focusing more on him. And this is where we come into place at in Haggai chapter 1, verse 2. And it says, this is what the Lord Almighty says. These people say the time has not yet come to rebuild the Lord's house. Now, let me be honest with you all. They had excuses. The land was still desolate after 70 years. The work was hard. They didn't have a lot of money. They suffered crop failures and drought. They had hostile enemies resisted the work. They remembered easier times in Babylon. They had nothing but excuses and were guilty. But here it is. They had excuses, but the excuses was trying to cover up their lack of prioritization. Your excuses will never get you off the hook for misprioritizing God in your life. Because here it is. God doesn't want exclusivity, but he wants priority. God is not saying only him. He said, but put me first. Put me first in your relationships. Put me first in your money. Put me first in your day. Put me first in your job. But many of us are misprioritizing God and giving him excuses. And as a result of that, their excuses is to cover up the real motives they have on the inside. The Lord had saved them from exile, brought them back to the place, and what he wanted to do was for them to rebuild his temple. And here it is. They started it, but they stopped. I'll say this again. They started putting them first, and then they stopped. They started putting them first, then they stopped. See, some of us got this bipolarness relationship with God. You want to put him first when he got you crying. You want to put him first when now you really need something. And then you put him down after he bless you. Because now what you call a blessing, oh Lord, if it is a blessing in your life, it's never going to cause you to give up on God. Anything that is a blessing is not going to cause you to put God second. I know y'all don't want to hear this, but oh well, because some of y'all going to be dying because you continue to put God last and cover it up with excuses. And you cannot live if you're not willing to put in the work. Hear me. They are to lay the foundation. And the Bible, y'all, in the temple is where solidified in the Old Testament is where God dwelled. Now, hear me. We don't need an actual edifice. This is a building where we meet. But how many of you all have started to rebuild your spiritual foundation on the inside, but you put it down? You don't have time for it. It's at the bottom of your list. But the things that you're praying for God to do in your life, you want him to put the resources at the front, but you're putting the source at the bottom. I'm trying to figure out what time do you worship him? Is it only for 90 minutes? No, for some of y'all, it's only 5 minutes. But for those that get here on time, for about 15 minutes. But you get what I'm saying? Either or, I'm trying to tell you that God does not want exclusivity, but he does want priority. And if I don't give you this and I let you die, I'm going to have my blood on your blood on me because I didn't tell you what was right. Said the autopsy is slow erosion. And so he says, look what he says. Okay, y'all. Look what he says. Haggai chapter 1, verse 3 and 4. He says, then the word of the Lord came through the prophet Haggai. Haggai is now talking to them. And he says, is it time for you yourselves to be living in your panel houses while the house remains in ruin? In other words, y'all want your house to be dope. You want your house to have marble. You want it to have quartz. Yeah, y'all want the new refrigerator. You want the LED screen while my house live in ruins. Oh, y'all don't want to hear this in here. Y'all don't want to hear this in here. He said, I don't have a problem that you got panel houses. I got a problem that it becomes a problem when my house needs panel houses. So he says, so he asked them a question. Is it time for you yourselves to be living in your panel houses while this house remains in ruins? Now, look at verse 5 through 6. Now, this is what the Lord Almighty says. Give careful thought to your ways. Here it is. You have planted much, but harvested little. Here, you eat, but you never have enough. You drink, but never have your fill. You put on clothes, but are not warm. You earn wages only to put them in a purse with holes in it. Anybody ever felt like you had holes in your pocket? When they said that, it's like you putting it in, then you putting it, and it's just coming on out. In other words, he says, you expecting much. You expecting much for your own. So what you're giving is not a result of believing that I'm supposed to be first. What you're giving is as a result of trying to cheat me like a slot machine. Because here it is. When you do the right thing with the wrong motives, it can have an adverse effect. Because naturally, somebody, if you planted much, I expect a big harvest. Says you eat, but you never have enough. You drink, but you never feel. You put on clothes, but are not warm. You earn wages, but to put them in a purse with holes in. For some of us, you have to experience this to make you put God first. Because even when some of us have robbed God, see how I got quiet? Not stole, robbed. Yeah. Robbed God, and we thought we was coming up, only to find out weeks later, the same thing that you kept from your tithes, now you got to use to try to pay something else off. Y'all don't want to see y'all. Look what he says. What he says in verse 7 through 8. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Give careful thought to your ways. Go up into the mountains and bring down timber. And here it is. And build my house so that I may take pleasure in it and be honored, says the Lord. Here it is, verse 1 and 9. You expected much, but see, it turned out to be little. What you brought home, watch this, the devil didn't blow it away. The adversary didn't blow it away. What happens when what you brought home that you thought was much, it was God himself who blew it away? Who do you pray to then when the person you praying to is the one why you don't have what you brought home? Who do you run to now? And all through this, hear me, family, this is not because he does not want them to have nice stuff. He want to make sure they can have nice stuff, but don't let your nice stuff put me at the bottom. And the church starts slowly eroding when they care just about them and not about God's house. It says, I blew it away. Why? Declares the Lord Almighty. Because of my house, which remains a ruin, while each of you is busy in your own house. And here goes some signs of slow erosion and gradual decline. Number one, people stop caring about how things look externally. Here at Fresh Start, we don't have a building fund. I grew up in the church when you had a building fund. That building fund lasted for 20 years. You was trying to figure where the doorknob at, where the building at. And when Thomas shares that people stop caring how things look externally, In other words, what people used to take pride in no longer is of value to them. Now, I'm one, as far as here at Fresh Start, at my house, I want the best TV we can buy. When we did a remodeling of our house, I wanted the best floor we can get. We had lights, but I wanted some nicer lights. And I was like, that's for my house. I should feel just as passionate about God's house. But you know what happens when people, they start caring just about their house and forsake God's house? This is why I'm so particular about, even though we're not in our own building yet, you treat it like it's your building. That's why some of y'all can't get nobody to rent out to you. Y'all laughing, but I'm telling you the truth. They rent it out to you. You treat it like, you don't take it like it's yours. It ain't mine anyway. I don't own it anyway. That's the problem. This is why what we do is so intentional. Y'all see signs out there? We used to let people just come in here. I'm like, nah, don't nobody want to walk in here smelling like fried chicken? This is intentional. Yeah, I know it's convenient, but I want to make sure that wherever God places us at, we take value in it. And more often than not, when your life is slowly declining, you start letting yourself go on the outside. Now, I know some of y'all, I don't care what nobody think of me. I do. Yeah, I'll play that all you want. Play it all you want. And if you didn't, then you wouldn't be putting your best picture on social media. Yeah. Put the one up when you just you just woke up out the bed. You know that one. People stop caring how things look externally. Here, this past week, family, myself and a few other members traveled down to Cleveland to my pastor's church, and we had a couple other people go down to San Jose, and some of them, as we was debriefing, said something to me. Says, now, Pastor, I understand why you haven't settled. They said, Pastor, it makes better sense to us. Now I understand when you talk about building why you haven't settled for something that you could have gotten, but it didn't line up with the vision. And some of us are waiting to get what God has for us at the end to take care of what he's given us now. Another sign of slow erosion and gradual decline. A decline in places that were once vibrant in the church. There's no vibrancy. And sometimes people walk into a place like, man, why it can't be like this? Are you adding value to what you want to be created? Vibrancy is not meaning like you have to be like somebody else. But you ought to be able to say something. The old preacher used to say, I wouldn't have a religion I couldn't feel every now and again. You telling me that you shouting for everybody else in the world, but you can't be vibrant for God? Don't use shyness for an excuse. Because somebody give you $1 million, you forget you shy. You forget it. Or sometimes we forget where God has brought us from. You want to sit all right and just put you in the club like this. Hey, you all you. And here you. Yeah, I'm telling you. I'm telling you, it's just, hear me when I'm saying. Vibrancy does not come from God doing everything you want. Vibrancy comes from who he is. Don't misconstrue my shouting that I got everything I wanted. Don't misconstrue that my house is perfect and because I'm lifting up my hands. No, I'm saying even though I'm going through hell, God, you still is my comforter. You still are a lover. You still are my provider. God, you're still worthy of all my worship. You're still worthy of all my praise, even in spite of. It doesn't change your worth. Vibrancy doesn't just happen through one person. It happens through multiple people who realize God's worth does not change based upon how you feel. Another signs of slow erosion and gradual decline. Number 3, a decline in the prayer lives of the members who remain. Hear me. Prayer is important, y'all. Over the last year, we've had many life groups on prayer. So if you don't feel comfortable praying, some of y'all don't feel comfortable about praying because you feel like you don't know how to pray. And when you say you don't know how to pray, sometimes it's because you comparing yourself to somebody else. See, here at Fresh Start, I can't make you get better, but I can provide the resources for you to get better. And this is why in the month of July and August, we're going to pray every Monday as a church at 6:30 in the morning. 6:30 in the morning. I want everybody to set your alarm. A praying church is a powerful church. I'm believing that our prayer calls going to break records of attendance these next 2 months. A decline in prayer lives of members who remain. Another sign of slow erosion and gradual decline, a decline in the outward focus of the church. Raise your hand if you came here through an invite. Somebody invited you. Come on, raise your hand right here. Right. Yeah, right. Thank you. Raise your hand if you came here like through social media. Social media, social media, social media. A church that stops being focused outwardly is a church that is preparing for a slow death. Tell people all the time, God has not called us to click up to just come in here. God has called us to be an army to go get those that don't realize that Fresh Start is available. And when you, hear me, some people, I want to grow, but they don't want to be the person that tell people outwardly. And you know, normally when people start wanting to grow, when it's about to die. When it's about to die. And this is my challenge to you. Do not get set on just what you see right now. We got teens under here. We got teens here, and we got teens on the outside that don't even realize that Jesus is available for them too. But watch this, teens. We need some teens on fire for God to be able to share that. A church that get only inside focus, it starts dwindling. It declines. Why? There's no new growth. There's no new growth. And can I tell you, some of y'all, if you haven't seen some new growth in your life internally, you should be frustrated. What? I would be frustrated if I'm going to the gym, eating right, and not seeing nothing. Something's off. And this is what I want to tell you. Don't just pray about it. Be a part of the solution. Here it is. This last one. Signs of slow erosion and gradual decline. A decline in the hopes and dreams of those who remain. Some of y'all come here and you stop hoping. You stop dreaming. Because it feels like God has taken so long, you feel like he doesn't hear your prayer. And sometimes it just may not be for you, but it doesn't mean that he still don't have a plan for you. What is it that you don't even work on anymore? What is it that you don't even pray about anymore? What is it that you was passionate about, but for whatever reason, because it didn't happen fast enough, you let it go? It won't just happen. And remember this, the autopsy of a dead church. Number one, what they saw, slow erosion. Sometimes you got to take a step out and evaluate what's dying, what can get better. Sometimes you got to ask people around you in your life. See, some of us only got people around us that you want to pat you on your back. There was some people in my life, I was like, listen, I don't need you to applaud me. I need you to tell me what I need to do better in. My self-esteem is great. Yeah, I say that not out of arrogance, because when you're the only kid, you got to learn to talk to yourself when nobody else around. Everybody else be like, you too short. You can't do it. No, I got this. See, some of y'all walking around with false humility. No, baby. No more of that for me. That's why even when me and Lady V talk, I tell her I know what God had called us to. I said, you just follow and I promise you. I tell her every week, I promise you that I'm leading us somewhere. And I promise you, wherever we're going, we will not be dead. Because God didn't call me to a dead place. Hear me. I've seen too many pastors pastors 30 years at a dead church because they was too loyal. And I tell Lady V all the time, baby, I'm telling you, everything that God has put in me and you, he didn't call us to a dead church. So the people that's going to follow us are going to be the ones that's vibrant and alive. And the ones that's going to be dead, we're going to keep them right where they can do their own burial. See, y'all don't want to hear that. Yeah, you don't want to hear that. Because, see, some of y'all are so loyal to dead things that you'll die with it. But me and my girl saying, I said, I'm not that loyal that I'm willing to die with dead people. Why? Because God has put something on the inside of each one of us. And you got to want it more than being a people pleaser. How many in here got dreams? How many in here got dreams? Yeah, how many in here got dreams? I want to say these again. Signs of slow erosion and gradual decline. Number one, people stop caring about how things look externally. God has a building for us, family. I know it. But you don't wait till you get what's yours to treat it like it's yours. A decline in places that were once vibrant. A decline in the prayer lives of the members who remain. A decline in the outward focus of the church. And a decline in the hopes and dreams of those who remain. Family, may we not let the enemy slowly erode what Jesus has started and the vision that he set for this house. Come on, let's put our hands together. Listen, the next few weeks, I would encourage you, even if you don't take notes on everything, at least each week, some of the things that the autopsy teaches us. Because when you learn from the autopsy, it allows you not to make the same mistakes. Hear me. I want you to know this. While we're talking about the church, I want you to take a self-examination of your own personal life. How's my prayer life? How's my fasting? You may not can fast 8 to 4 on Wednesday, but guess what? Just start with 3 hours. Start with 4. Have I been making God priority in my life? God does not, what I say, God does not want exclusivity, but he wants priority. I've seen it, y'all. I've seen great church. I've seen church services high, low, all over. And at the end of the day, if you don't take in the word, you'll have a great experience, but nothing changed on the inside. This is why we have certain things, life groups. So yourself don't be so focused on the people you just know, and you can get outside of your comfort zone to build a relationship with people that you have no relationship with. If you're here under the sound of my voice, do not have a personal relationship with God. You're online, whoever you are and wherever you may be. You do not have a personal relationship with God. Or do not have a church home, a place where you can grow where you go. On a count of 3, we want you to lift up your hand. On a count of 3, we want you to lift up your hand, and we want to just celebrate with you. If you're online, we want you to text Fresh Start to 97,000. 1, 2, 3. If you're here, do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ, or don't have a church where you grow where you go. If you're online, we want you to text the word Fresh Start to 97,000. All right? Real quick. Text the word Fresh Start to 97,000. All right. Come on, let's give God some praise. Next Sunday, we have Growth Track #1. Growth Track #1 in place. Yes, first step. This is the front door to our church. Anybody that's maybe you haven't gone through Growth Track, you're interested in finding out more about Fresh Start. What does it mean to know God? What does it mean to find freedom, discover purpose, make a difference? This is the front door. We ask for you to just start right there. I promise you, when you start, it will help you better understand the entire process. Then number 2, what's next? Our Fasting Wednesday, weekly day of prayer and fasting where we challenge our church to turn your plate upside down. Your belly is not your God. Your belly is not your God. We are not, when we fast, we're intentionally fasting, but I don't always want to have to fast and pray in a crisis. I want to build that muscle up. It's letting God know, Lord, I'm putting you before my lunch. And when you pray and fast, you all on that day, don't just go without eating. Open your word up to a scripture just to meditate on. All right? Sometimes, and I think I've said this before, it takes more faith to pause than it takes to continue working. All right. Next is Bible study this Thursday. My apology, you all. I know we came on 3 hours earlier last week. I was like, man down, turn it off. But it was already up. That's the great thing, though. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube page, go ahead and subscribe to it because it will alert you. All right. Next is... anything else? Okay, go ahead and follow and subscribe. We'll have a graphic next week, but starting July, first Monday in July, I would love for you to join us for our prayer call for the next 2 months. On the conference call, set your alarm. I just feel like God, we need it. Thank you, brother. Secret sauce. But I just feel a real tug and a push. And hear me, this is not just for a couple. This for some of y'all, it's going to be a challenge because you're going to be like, I'm not a morning person. Some people are like, I'm not either, but guess what? It's okay. Just dial that number, put it right here. Put it right here. Just be up with your eyes open. All right? All right, but I'm asking our church to join us as we come together and pray together as a family. Just remember, you all also, I will be releasing some information to you about the month of August. Starting the month of August, we will no longer be here. We're going to do something different for the month of August. I just need to make sure we confirm that contract, but we're going to do something totally different in the month of August, so get ready for that. We will need just some extra hands on deck to make sure we can make this happen. Yeah. So thank you. And so then we'll be in a different place starting September. So y'all, we on the move. But this is where we go, the church go. Right? We're not the building, we're the church. So wherever we go, it's going to be sanctified as holy ground once we leave there, once we get done from it. And so I just ask to make sure you stay in tune so you'll be notified about all the changes. This is an exciting time. For me, why? Because, and it should be for you, God is writing our story. God is writing our story. And it's moments like this that you jump out in faith and do things that you wouldn't do if you were still in the same place. And so I'm just telling you, we're going to do something different for the month of August. I think it's going to be great. We're going to be promoting also just community and relationship after service, just building community and family. But other than that, I love you all. I appreciate you. Thank you for all your prayers. Listen, I want to do this one thing. Do anybody got a testimony they want to share?